Welcome to the Publishing Triangle Awards. It's another spring, another award season. And the same thing happened that happened last year. I don't want to complain, but why does the Pulitzer Prizes always come first and take all our publicity? It's like they're publicity hounds. Otherwise, I know we'd be on the front page of the art section of the New York Times. But honestly, obviously, a lot of us have been talking about why was there no fiction winner this year? And I'd rather emphasize the positive and say here at the Publishing Triangle and Farrell Grumley Awards, we found 24 wonderful distinguished books to nominate. And tonight we're going to name 6 outstanding winners, including 2 winners in fiction. So our judges did it. It's too bad they couldn't. But seriously, you know, you have to admire the people who judge these contests. It's a lot of work. It's mostly anonymous. We found out this week that the Pulitzer fiction judges, Susan Larson, Maureen Corrigan, and Michael Cunningham, read 300 books. That's an enormous effort. I'm sure it's very rewarding, but still, it's a big-time suck, and it's kind of disappointing that then the board of directors of the Pulitzer says, "Oh no, we don't like your choices." So I'd like to take a minute to thank all of our judges this year. Some of them are here tonight. Some other people here have been judges in previous years. I just want to give a big round of applause to the judges. Before we get into the program, I think some of you saw the table out front. Mobile Libris is selling books, both for Whitehead honoree Alison Bechtel and for almost all of our nominees tonight. So if you didn't have a chance before the ceremony, please buy a book after the ceremony, and maybe you can take it to the reception and get it signed by your favorite author. And I wanted to salute the nominees who are here tonight. A handful of you have made it. We appreciate it. Some of you came from New York City. One of you came from Bulgaria. And one of you came from Australia. So would all the nominees who are in the audience tonight please stand up and we can give them a round of applause. Okay, so I hope you have your programs and you're going to make notes about your reading list in weeks to come, but I promise you there won't be a test. And to start things off, I'd like to introduce Martin Hyatt.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back again this year to present the Edmund White Award for Debut Fiction. This award was first presented in 2006. It recognizes outstanding first novels or story collections by LGBT authors. This award honors the distinguished Edmund White, who won the very first Bill Whitehead Award for Lifetime Achievement in 1990. White is the author, among many other works, of A Boy's Own Story, States of Desire, A Married Man, Fanny, and Arts and Letters. Let's face it, these are very weird, challenging, unsettling times for publishing. Definitely changing times. And that's why I was so thrilled to see so many submissions for the Debut Fiction Award this year, and to see so many high-quality, beautiful books by debut authors. In fact, we had so many excellent entries for debut novels published in 2011 that this year we have 4 finalists instead of the usual 3. I truly love all of these books. Seth Bookey was the amazing coordinator for the Edmund White Award this year. He's taking pictures down there, so he does the photography tonight. My fellow judges this year were Lisa Moore and Stacy DeRasmo. Here are the nominees. My Sister Chaos by Laura Fergus, Spinifex Press. The editor is The editor is Susan Hawthorne. Stacy DeRasmo had this to say: "My Sister Chaos is unswervingly original. Hard to believe it's a first novel. Interwoven in short, lapidary chapters, we meet twin sisters, a cartographer, and a painter. A mysterious war, a house with an almost magnetic emotional pull, mapping as a philosophical, political, existential problem, love, chaos, and the beauty and danger of repetition. Fergus maps or unmaps the most complex states of exile and yearning in language that is at once gorgeously simple and devastatingly accurate." Mitko by Garth Greenwell, Miami University Press. The editor is David Schloss. Intoxicating and powerful. Garth Greenwell's Mitko is a journal of detail and desire, a haunting rumination of hope and passion. In this complex novella, Garth Greenwell reminds us that elegant prose and a respect for literary tradition can occasionally lead to something utterly original. Mitko is both dreamy and a dream. We the Animals by Justin Torres, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, editor, Jenna Johnson, agent Jen Awe. We the Animals is a complex, brave, and breathtaking book. Lisa Moore says that the word fierce has a definition that is uniquely ours and hasn't made it to the Merriam-Webster's yet. We the Animals by Justin Torres is a fierce debut. The narrator, the youngest of three brothers, expertly navigates us through childhood full of domestic violence, abuse, poverty, and ultimately sexual awakening. Zipper Mouth by Lori Weeks, The Feminist Press. The editor is Amy Shoulder. Punchy, drunk, delirious, and funny, Lori Weeks' Zippermouth is a brave and honest look at life on the edges of sanity and sobriety. With a voice fearless yet vulnerable, mouthy yet warm, Zippermouth brilliantly highlights the quiet glory of everydayness set against a challenging urban landscape. This year, the 2012 Edmund White Award for Debut Fiction goes to My Sister Chaos by Laura Fergus. And she's here.
Hey, I got nothing at all. Thank you to Publishing Triangle, above all. I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given, particularly Australian authors, to present at for these awards, because well, there's not enough lesbians in Australia, basically. It's not just a personal frustration. That's a demographic reality in terms of publishing. And it means that we don't have a very big audience if we're writing particularly lesbian-focused fiction. So it's an enormous opportunity for us to sort of be able to come into a market. And my great mentor and editor, Susan Hawthorne's also been nominated for a poetry award. So very, very much thank you to the Publishing Triangle for that. Thank you to Susan and to Spinifex Press for publishing the book and taking such a risk on it in the first place, as they so often do. Thanks to my friends who are very loud up the back for coming. I really appreciate your support as always, and thanks of course always to Maurice. I adore you and you're very patient, and thanks. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Justin Spring, and I won the Randy Schiltz Award for my book Secret Historian last year. I was again honored to be a judge this year. The other judges for the nonfiction category were Mary Capello, James Gifford, Rigoberto Gonzalez, and Ellen Greenblatt.
And I'm Charlotte Abbott. I've been a Publishing Triangle member for about 20 years now. During that time, I've been a book editor, an industry journalist, a book critic, and now a digital publishing consultant and writer. The Judy Grahn Award for Lesbian Nonfiction honors the groundbreaking work of Judy Grahn, poet, cultural theorist, and activist. Grahn's nonfiction, such as Another Mother Tongue and Blood, Bread, and Roses, makes us see the world in a different light. This year's nominees are Deviations, a Gail Rubin reader published by Duke University Press. The editor is Ken Wissaker. Few essay collections break new ground with the daring, rigor, and grace of Gail Rubin's work on thinking sex, gay leathermen, SM cultures, pornography debates, and prostitution. In Deviations, Rubin contextualizes her essential readings on power, gender, and sex for a new generation. She also gives us a new understanding of the linguistic, political, and sociological systems through which we may claim our right to exist. These essays will continue to be studied and read for years to come. Sister Arts, The Erotics of Lesbian Landscapes by Lisa L. Moore, published by University of Minnesota Press. The editor is Richard Morrison, and it's actually a beautiful book if you have a chance to look at it on one of the tables. It's gorgeously illustrated. Lisa Muir's sure-footed scholarship and perceptive eye range far beyond the four 18th and 19th century women she studies who pursued the so-called sister arts of painting, poetry, and landscape gardening. They included aristocratic diarist Mary Delaney, Margaret Bentinck, the Duchess of Portland, romantic poet Anna Seward, and feminist intellectual Sarah Pierce. Our history is always hiding in plain sight, Moore says, and her study, full of lush illustrations, allows us to witness the often overwhelming landscape of the lesbian heart. When We Were Outlaws by Jean Cordova, published by Spinsters, Inc., the editor is Catherine Forrest. In this novelized memoir, Jean Cordova offers a unique first-person account of life on the front lines of the emerging lesbian and gay civil rights movements. An activist, organizer, and journalist, Cordova embeds her story in the radical history of the 1970s. Her work as a reporter for the Los Angeles-based Free Press brought her into contact with leftist groups like the Weather Underground. She also organized the first National Lesbian Conference and founded the news magazine Lesbian Tide. The central set piece of this fascinating book is Cordova's account of the famous 1974 strike at the LA Gay Community Service Center, which was triggered by tensions between gay male and lesbian movements. And the winner of the Judy Grahn Award for lesbian nonfiction is When We Were Outlaws by Jean Cordova. And accepting the award is Don Weezy.
Thank you, thank you.
So this is for you.
Is it for me? Oh,
You get the obligatory kiss.
Jean is going to be so excited, and the reason I'm here, and she's not, is she lives in LA, and she and I did a first really early round of edits on the book, and they did a really nice job of describing it, but I just want to say it's not just about the gay movement. It's got Patty Hearst and neo-Nazis and undercover cops and lesbians and gay men fighting and storming out of meetings. If that's not the 1970s, then I don't know what is. So I will just read Jean's very brief comments, and this is Jean. Dear queers of the Great Triangle in the pink sky of New York, I wish I were standing in front of you so you could see me jump up and down, shout out, oh my God, a dozen times, and utter a great dyke squeal, fucking awesome. This is the first literary award of my lifetime. Since I can't do those things in front of you, please accept my humble gratitude from the great sun belt of the West, Hollywood, where I lay under the weather, as they say. I've asked Dawn to accept this award on my behalf, and she thanks me. A special thank you to my Indeed publisher and editor, Spinsters, Inc., Catherine Forrest, who capped off 10 years it took me to write Outlaws by giving a great life in the great gay world of literary adventure. I'm sure you can tell tonight that I'm feeling great, and tonight everything is great and good, especially our long and great standard bearer, the Publishing Triangle. Thank you for recognizing the lesbian gay history in When We Were Outlaws. Thank you, PT, for the many decades of fortitude, courage, and love you've shown the LGBTQ authors. Your commitment to us gives us the strength to keep writing. Jean Cordova, thank you.
Now we turn to the Randy Shilts Prize for Gay Nonfiction, which honors the memory of Randy Shilts, the author of The Mayor of Castro Street, and The Band Played On, and Conduct Unbecoming. The three nominees are, first, A Queer History of the United States by Michael Bronsky, published by Beacon Press. The editor is Gayatri Patnaik. In this book, Michael Bronski demonstrates that same-sex attraction and same-sex sexual activity have both always existed in our country, ever since colonial times, even as ways of understanding and describing them have evolved over the centuries. Using primary source material, as well as literature, social histories, and cultural histories, Bronski weaves a fascinating narrative. As a queer history of the United States demonstrates, the impulse to regulate sexuality of any sort is a recurring theme in American history. Countering that impulse is the enduring American notion that all people are entitled to certain inalienable rights. As gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, and queer experience become ever more accepted by mainstream America, Bronski reevaluates the American experience to make it ever more inclusive of those who in previous eras have been unfairly punished, marginalized, and excluded. The second nominee is Recruiting Young Love, How Christians Talk About Homosexuality by Mark D. Jordan, published by the University of Chicago Press. The editor is Douglas Mitchell, and the agent is Anne Borchardt. Recruiting Young Love is a revelatory indictment against religious hypocrisy. The charge is expressed not through vitriol or reactionary politics, but rather through a close and sustained examination of the brittle yet influential history of church rhetoric. Jordan traces the parallel journeys of queer rights and the religious right to illustrate how hatred and intolerance are socially constructed and how the dehumanization of the queer body and the demonization of the queer spirit are but desperate attempts to disorient and control our impressionable youth. A powerful work of scholarship written in clear and accessible prose, Recruiting Young Love is yet another example of a luminous text that provides us with perspective, insight, and guidance during these troubling times. Finally, the third nominee is A Saving Remnant, The Radical Lives of Barbara Deeming and David McReynolds by Martin Duberman. The book was published by the New Press, where the editor is Ellen Adler. On the opening page of this dual biography, Martin Duberman explains that the saving remnant is that small number of people neither indoctrinated nor frightened into accepting oppressive social conditions. His subjects were part of that radical cohort in the mid to late 20th century. Barbara Deeming, a feminist journalist and political activist with an abiding belief in nonviolence, was an out lesbian since the age of 16. David McReynolds, a socialist and community organizer, was among the first activists to publicly burn a draft card during the Vietnam War. In 1980, he became the first openly gay man to run for president of the United States. The pair had an abiding respect for each other, even while they sometimes disagreed, and each made significant contributions to the radical movements of their time. And now the Randy Schultz Award for Gay Nonfiction goes to Recruiting Young Love by Mark Jordan. Accepting the award tonight is Anne Borchardt, Mr. Jordan's agent. Congratulations.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Anne Borchardt, and you already know what I do, and that I'm Mark Jordan's literary agent, and very proud to be, even when he doesn't get an award. Unfortunately, Mark couldn't be in New York this evening, but he asked me to read a very short letter in the event that he received the award. I'm very sorry not to be with you, but let me say that I'm triply grateful for this award. First, because it comes from the publishing triangle, a voice for the kind of publishing that gathers and preserves so much queer life. I'm grateful, second, because it places me in the company of Martin Duberman and Michael Bronski, both of whom I have been reading longer than any of us would care to confess. I am grateful for the award, finally, because it carries the name of Randy Schultz, whose footsteps I have dogged through many archives. I wish that he were here, not least to be thanked for how he wrote history. With thanks for your help, Mark. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Michael Dennany, and I'm here to present the Publishing Triangle Leadership Award to Frances Golden. When Trent Duffy asked me to introduce Frances, I was honored, for Frances is one of the people I most respect in the whole world of publishing. And I thought it would be easy. After all, Frances is one of the most colorful figures I have ever met in New York City, which is saying something, by the way. An exotic bird of paradise in the wren-filled world of corporate publishing. But when I started thinking about it, and when I reread the volume of tributes her daughter Sally had assembled for her 80th birthday, some time ago now, I realized quickly that I was quite wrong. How can you possibly describe this woman briefly? You would need a whole novel, one of those great big 19th century novels with a cast of thousands, to capture the breadth and depth and the sheer vitality of her life, her deep, abiding, and passionate commitment to so many causes and so many people, neighborhoods, and principles. If you conjured a mashup of Auntie Mame and Rosa Luxemburg, and a hitherto unknown bodhisattva in billowing purple robes, you might get something close to Frances. The first thing that has always struck people about Frances is her beauty, as Sally's book makes abundantly clear. Decade after decade after decade after decade, people comment on her shining appearance, the twinkle in her eye, her exuberant love of colorful clothes, and the grace with which she moved, a lightness of touch, indeed a lightness of being, that made the world seem a happier place. But the second thing to strike people is her astonishing, apparently never-ending energy, her sheer stamina for life and its passions. A gentle hurricane, wrote one awed contributor to that volume. And this inexhaustible energy, fueled by an equally inexhaustible generosity, found expression in Frances's caring for friends and caring for the world. This passionate caring, it seems to me, is what is so remarkable about this woman. Her caring for people, for family and friends of friends and co-workers and political collaborators. A truly remarkable number of people are in this woman's life. Her caring for neighborhoods and the tenants' rights movement and affordable housing, her caring for writers, especially those who are so radical that many in the publishing world would hesitate to take them on. But then this is the woman who early on quit the Communist Party because it wasn't radical enough for her. Who marched on gay pride days with a sign declaring her pride in her 2 lesbian daughters, and who, at a recent demonstration, was seen arguing with a cop who was desperately trying to avoid arresting her. So it wasn't surprising when Frances decided at the age of 55 to start her own literary agency. And she was not primarily interested in commercial success or in pandering to the public, but in authors who had something to say. Barbara Kingsolver remembers looking through Writer's Market to find an agent and being stopped in her tracks by Frances's entry, quote, "I do not market any material that is sexist, racist, homophobic, or gratuitously violent. This cuts me out of 90% of what's published, but I can be proud of all my authors." End quote. This attitude has led to a client list that includes some of the most radical and some of the most successful authors of our day. And also led Frances early on to champion gay and lesbian authors. But it was the pride that she could take in her authors that was important to me. What I have admired enormously over the years is how Frances remained true to her early political values, yet found a way to work concretely in this publishing world of ours. Her own version of think globally, act locally. Frances never forgot the political impact that working in publishing could have, never lost sight of the political dimension of a professional life. Instead of sprouting political positions, not that Frances couldn't sprout, of course, she occupied herself with getting things done, things that ought to get done, and things that might make a difference if they did get done, both in the neighborhood and in publishing. And it made a difference to me to see a colleague who presented such a clear-headed example of how to live in the world without losing your self-respect or retreating from your political values. It made a difference to see a person who has never given up on the political and who has remained an activist her entire life. Hannah Arendt once said that, quote, even in the darkest of times, we have the right to expect some illumination, and that such illumination may well come less from theories and concepts than from the uncertain, flickering, and often weak light that some men and women in their lives and in their works will kindle under almost any circumstances and shed over the time span that was given them on earth, end quote. All her life, Frances has been sparkling that light over those of us lucky enough to know her or to work with her, and she has indeed made the world a lighter, better place. As Dorothy Allison wrote to Trent, and I'm quoting from her letter, Frances Golden is without question a force in the world for greatness, compassion, and insight. She has always championed the rights of those the world would dismiss, and in doing so, she has made it possible for many of us to do what we most want to do, write the books that will live past us and make the change in the world she champions. She is our advocate, our confessor, our companion, and our mother figure. Without her, the world would be a smaller, meaner place. With her, we are all enlarged and affirmed. I applaud you and the Triangle for recognizing what so many of us already know. Frances Golden is a literary saint, fully deserving of all the accolades we can bestow upon her, end quote. An opinion with which I totally agree. So Frances, I herewith present you with the Publishing Triangle's Leadership Award in 2011.
I thought I'd bring a little show and tell. This is what I carry. At every gay pride parade since its inception. Well, it's going to fall a little fall. The Gay Pride Parade is a very important piece of my life. And I want to tell you that I cry during 4 hours of it every year. And I cry because there's something about that sign. I don't quite know what it is. Something about adoring my lesbian daughters, one of whom is here today, that reaches the kids on the march who have been rejected by their parents. And they rush to me. And they hug me and they ask me if I'll adopt them. They ask me if I'll call their parents, which I do. I write down their number and I call their parents. And I bleed at it's not stupidity, of the parents who have rejected these wonderful young people. Not because of what the children will do, because they'll live their life, but because of what those parents are missing. I think that there's something about being other that makes people very generous, whether they're handicapped or disabled. But when you're gay or lesbian, you're other. You're not like the general population. And it makes you more sensitive to the people who are needy in this world, including their parents. And I can tell you, I have two of the greatest daughters in the entire world with regard to the way they love me, the way they take care of me. And if I could speak to all the parents who are neglecting their children, I would let them know what they're missing. I do it just a few times at each gay pride parade. How can you not be thrilled working as an agent when you have people like Marty Duberman, like Dorothy Allison, like Adrienne Rich? Don't cry, Francis, you promised you wouldn't cry. Like Stacey Ann Chen and the 150 people that we represent. They are such gifted people who are changing the world with their words, and I get to be their agent. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for them, and I do good things for them. And the people in the agency, all 6 of us, are devoted to serving our clients well. I'm very proud that there are more and more people who are gay and lesbian in publishing, and that's because we're not purple. If we were purple, we would be more rejected. But most of us are white. And I'm ashamed, really ashamed, and we should all be ashamed, at the disgusting lack of people of color in our industry. And whatever we can do as writers or editors to get our industry to know that this is a shameful situation, really shameful. I'm trying to find a person who can bring into the agency on an agency level so they can be agents. And it is so difficult. I'm still trying. I need all of your help to be fed the right people who can become part of the agency and become agents. So let's do what we can about that. The last thing I want to say is that there's a remarkable thing happening in our world today, and it's called Occupy. On next Tuesday, I and I think 500 or 600 other people are going to occupy the Department of Justice to make sure that Mumia is free, to make sure that the death penalty ends, to make sure that people of color are not thrown in jail just to make sure they don't vote, and to make sure that our hands get off immigrants this country was born with immigrants if they weren't Native Americans. It was built with immigrants, and now we're denying people who want to come to this country to live in this country. Can we shout just once or twice, free Mumia? Free Mumia! Free Mumia! Thank you. Yeah. When I see him next week or in 2 weeks, I'll tell him that you did that. But I want you to know that there's something happening in this country that can change things which are so bad and moving so close to fascism that only we can make the difference. And a bunch of young people, people maybe without jobs, maybe people without homes, have occupied Zuccotti Park. And they've been evicted twice, but they're still there. And they're going to do an amazing thing on May Day. And let's all be there on May Day. Our office is closed on Monday. Don't call us then. The office is closed. It's May Day. But I want to tell you that you can't leave it to these young people. And some of the very, very old people. I have a very good friend, Lillian Lifflander, who's there at least 3 times a week. I think she's 95 or 6. Does anybody, is she older than that? 95, a wonderful woman. We can't leave it to the people who are now there. If everybody in this room, doesn't do something to support Occupy, you're missing a valuable piece of history that is going to change our country. And if you don't want to live to tell kids, I wish I had done more. You don't have to do everything, but every demonstration you can attend, get your ass off the chair and get to that meeting, get to that rally, get to that demonstration. be there on May Day, and be there whenever you can, because if this thing grows the way I know it will, we're going to make a real difference. So occupy whatever it is that appeals to you most, but be part of that movement. I want to thank you for this award. I'm very grateful for it. I love you all, and free Mumia and occupy.
Hi, my name is Carol Rosenfeld. Oh, sorry. This is Carol.
And this is Thomas Keith. This videotaping thing is really, I can tell it's affecting people. Trent is curtsying, you know. So I feel a little discombobulated because I'm getting weepy, and I don't usually get weepy at this point in the ceremony. I usually wait till the end. But Francis sort of got to me there. I'm going to present the Audre Lorde Award for Lesbian Poetry. I just want to acknowledge our judges, Thomas Keith, Eleanor Lerman, G. Winston James, Michael Walsh, Sally Belrose, and Lisa Huffaker. Those of you who have been to our ceremonies before know that in presenting the Poetry Awards, it's traditional that we introduce the award with the words of the poets that who the award is named after. And this year, in choosing what I was going to read, I wanted to acknowledge in some way the passing of Audrey Rich, who was such a great poet. And I know that she and Audre Lorde were friends. So I found this one. If the spirits of these two incredible women are with us tonight, I hope they accept this offering. It's called Memorial 1. If you come as softly as wind within the trees, you may hear what I hear, see what sorrow sees. If you come as lightly as the threading dew, I shall take you gladly, nor ask more of you. You may sit beside me, silent as a breath, and only those who stay dead shall remember death. If you come, I will be silent, nor speak harsh words to you. I will not ask you why now, nor how, nor what you knew. But we shall sit here softly beneath two different years, and the rich earth between us shall drink our tears. The finalists for the Audre Lorde Award for Lesbian Poetry are Open Winter by Ray Garand, published by Bell Day Books, Cow by Susan Hawthorne, published by Spinifex Press, The Stranger Dissolves by Christina Hutchins, published by 16 Rivers Press, and Inside the Money Machine by Minnie Bruce Pratt, published by Carolina Wren Press. And the Audre Lorde Award for Lesbian Poetry goes to Minnie Bruce Pratt for Inside the Money Machine. The editor was Andrea Selch. And Scott Hightower is going to accept the award on behalf of Minnie Bruce Pratt.
My name is Carol Rosenfeld. I'm Scott Hightower. I'm sorry that ill health prevents me from being with you. My warmest thanks to the Publishing Triangle for this award, which I'm here to accept only because of and through the life work and vision of Audre Lorde, poet warrior for liberation and justice. Audre said, "Poetry is not only dream and vision, it lays the foundations for a future of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before." My hope is that Inside the Money Machine can be one of those bridges to a future where we end capitalism and create a more just economic system where we each make what we can, take what we need, and that be enough. Thank you.
I was looking for a quote from a Tom Gunn poem for this evening, and I ran across an interview from the 1980s. He was, I think the question initially was how he came to be a poet, and he was free associating for quite a while. And he said, "In my teens, I wanted to be a novelist. I read so many Victorian novels that I wanted to be a novelist very much in the Victorian sense. When I was about 20, I found out that I wasn't cut out to be a novelist. I just couldn't write dialogue. After a while, you find you're better at one form than at others, or you like one form better than others, and so you tend to, after you've been writing poetry for 10 years or so, your thoughts, your ideas come to you very much in terms of poems. As humans, we look at things and think about what we've looked at. We treasure it in a kind of private art gallery. Poetry is an instrument for exploring the truth of things as far as human beings can explore it." The finalists, it was, as usual, was an amazing group of submissions we had in both categories. The finalists for the Tom Gunn Award this year for gay poetry are Touch by Henri Cole, published by Farrar, Straus and Giroux. A Fast Life, the collected poems of Tim Blugos, by Tim Blugos, Nightboat Books. Love in Idleness by Christopher Hennessy, published by Brooklyn Art Press. And Motion Studies by Brad Richard, published by The Word Works. And the Tom Gunn Award for gay poetry goes to Henri Cole for Touch, the editor was Jonathan Galassi. Henri Cole could not be here tonight, but he sent this statement. He writes, "To a writer who doesn't really know how good he is, awards are reassuring, so I like awards. Though it is sometimes confusing when poems have a little moment in the limelight since they are written in solitude and silence. I want to thank my editor, Jonathan Galassi, for publishing Touch, and also for the handful of books that came before it. He is an ideal editor. I also wish to honor the memory of Tom Gunn, whose beautiful poems of love and death helped me when I was a young man. He seemed to me then, and still, an unsituatable poet, and that rarest of things, a poet without vanity. Finally, I want to thank the poetry judges of the Publishing Triangle for encouraging me to keep going. I plan to do just that. Thank you." Next, we have Stephen Greco and Sarah Van Arsdale.
We are all Carol Rosenfeld.
It reminded me of To Tell the Truth.
But really, I'm Sarah Van Arsdale, and this is Stephen Greco. And for the 23rd time, the Farrow Grumley Literary Awards Incorporated assembled a fresh panel of judges this year and reviewed scores, not 300, but scores of new LGBT fiction, a total of nearly 50 books.
Right, and by the way, before we continue, I just wanted to congratulate you on your new book, Grand Isle.
Oh, can we talk about my book for a while? No, let's talk about the finalists of the Farrow Grumley Award.
Yes. Our finalists for this year's Farrow Grumley were all compelling in many ways, and 6 were identified by our panel of judges as extraordinary. Our 6 finalists in alphabetical order are Shannon Kane for The Necessity of Certain Behaviors, published by the University of Pittsburgh Press. A powerful collection of stories that explore, says author Danny Shapiro, the many varieties of brokenness and survival. The editor was Deborah Mead, and the agent was Sarah Burns with the Gernert Company.
Alan Hollinghurst for The Stranger's Child, published by Alfred A. Knopf. A lavishly praised, multi-generational novel that the Times called intricate, witty, and playful, a comedy of manners and investigation of class. The editor was Robin Desser, and the agent was Christy Fletcher.
Suzette Meyer for Monoceros, published by Coach House Books. The sensitive and surprising story of the aftermath of a high school suicide, told in a rich variety of tones, quote, quirky and emotionally devastating, said Zoe Whittall in Canada's Globe and Mail. The editor was Alana Wilcox, and there was no agent.
Rahul Mehta for Quarantine, published by Harper Perennial. The best first collection I have read in 20 years, said no less than Madison Smart Bell, centering on a cast of openly gay Indian American men in stories that are buoyant and incisive. The editor was Terry Carton, and the agent was Nathaniel Jacks.
Paul Russell for The Unreal Life of Sergei Nabokov, published by Cleus Press. An astounding book, says Mark Merlis, that will remind the reader not only of Nabokov but of Tolstoy, for the epic sweep of history and detail that conjures up a whole vanished world of seeing and feeling. The editor was Frederic Delacoste, and the agent was Harvey Klinger.
Bob Smith for Remembrance of Things I Forgot, published by University of Wisconsin Press. An inventive and wise novel of time travel that Christopher Bram said, quote, combines the ingenuity of science fiction with the emotional weight of autobiographical fiction. A comic novel, but reading it can be a life-altering experience, like falling through a rabbit hole in space-time and coming out the other side a better person. The editor was Raphael Kadushin, and the agent is Rob Weisbach.
All of these books, by the way, are outside. If I can recommend you get them into your arms on the way out, I really recommend it. It was a delight to read these books this year. We honor all 6 titles and congratulate all 6 authors.
Our winning novel is a major work that deserved to be published by a major big-name house, but they all said no. We know this is a tough time in publishing when many deserving novels go unpublished. But then brave Cleus Press picked it up. This is an independent house that does first-rate work, but is nowhere near the same size as Knopf or HarperCollins. They went to bat for this book and did a dynamite job. The author told a friend that he has never worked with smarter, more savvy editors. They took a strong book and made it even better. They got it out in the world and reviewed by the Washington Post and other important venues. The moral is that you can't keep a great novel down, but it's also necessary that we have smart, independent presses like Cleus in the world. And now, it's the winner of this year's Farrow Grumley Award.
Our winner centers on the life of Sergei Nabokov, the gay brother of author Vladimir Nabokov, who was troubled by Sergei's basic nature and what we might now call Sergei's lifestyle choices. For various reasons, wrote Vladimir, who was a bit of a stiffy, as you know, I find it inordinately hard to speak of my other brother. In The Unreal Life of Sergei Nabokov, we follow what one reviewer called the eclipsed Nabokov, from Tsarist Russia to the halls of Cambridge to the Paris of modernism and hedonism, and then to Nazi Berlin, where Sergei's story ends. Carefully researched and richly detailed, said Out magazine, the book presents a captivating portrait of a gay culture in the first half of the 20th century. Reviewers have remarked on the honesty and vulnerability of Sergei, which hooks the reader emotionally. Also, the novel's astonishing cast of supporting characters includes Picasso, Gertrude Stein, Magnus Hirschfeld, Sergei's sometime lover Jean Cocteau, Diaghilev, and the corps de ballet of the Ballet Russe. Besides being a tender portrait of a gay man finding himself outside his famous brother's shadow, the novel is a wonderful read that brings us into rooms we've always wanted to visit, like the parlor of 27 Rue de Fleurus, the ballroom of Nicolas de Gunsberg's mansion in the Saint-Germain, and the nightclub Le Boeuf sur la Toile. The author, too, is our first to win the Farrah Grumley twice in the history of these awards. He won the first time for his 1999 novel, The Coming Storm, and he is also the author of The Salt Point, Sea of Tranquility, and War Against the Animals, among other books. And so for The Unreal Life of Sergei Nabokov, the 2012, or should I say the 2012, Farrah Grumley Award to Paul Russell.
Well, my profound gratitude to the Publishing Triangle. I was extremely honored to be named a finalist for the Farrah Grumley Award and to find myself among such a distinguished company of fellow finalists. And now I'm humbled to have received this award. It means a lot to me. I'd like us all to take this occasion to remember for a moment Robert Farrow and Michael Grumley, two very talented writers whose lives and promising careers were tragically cut short by AIDS. I'd like to thank my indefatigable agent, Harvey Klinger, who's always been there for me, and also, and you've heard me say this before, the amazing team at Cleus Press, especially Felice Newman, Brenda Knight, Nancy Fish, Kat Sanborn, and most of all, my absolutely extraordinary editor, Frederic Delacoste, a hands-on, old-fashioned editor of the type we had all thought had mostly gone extinct. I've spent most of my publishing career with corporate mainstream presses. Never have I felt myself in such competent professional hands as I have with Cleus. And finally, thanks to all the readers out there, without whom the writing of books would be little more than futility. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Barriano, and thank you. Thank you. And there are a lot of back-in-the-day memories that are coming to the fore, and I have to say that in the process of introducing Alison Bechdel, which I'm going to do, it's quite wonderful to do that in the company of Frances Golden, who had played a part in my publishing life, as I have played in her agenting life, and who is one of life's most both lovable and stunning and worthy of admiration creatures, okay? A real inspiration as a human being, as well as an agent. The first time I was in therapy, lo those many years ago, it was a very unsuccessful experience, and unfortunately kept me out of the therapy that I needed for a number of years. It would have saved so much time. But the one thing that I learned from my first therapist was the amazing information that everybody has neuroses, okay, a fact that I didn't understand at all previously, and that the trick was to find a way to integrate one's neuroses with meaningful work and relationships. They thought that being an editor, this particular therapist thought that my being an editor and a publisher was a very good use of my neuroses because my interest in particularity, the comma in the appropriate place, the exact color of blue on the cover, and the need for authors to be given as much support and loving attention and encouragement and, whenever possible, honesty. As not always possible, but the best authors really enjoyed honesty. So when I was thinking about neurotic behaviors, both my own and other people's, I immediately thought of Allison. And the reason I thought of Allison is because I cannot imagine any other person that I have known for as long and as well as I've known Allison, 25-ish kind of years. Is it that long? Yeah, I have a long time. Who has taken whatever particular neuroses come as part of her and combined them with a level of hard work and genius. And I don't use the word lightly. I do not use the word lightly. To turn her life into a creative, constant unfolding adventure that we get to read on the page. And I have to say, I met Allison when she was in her early 20s, and we both were remarking that even she has now some gray hair. And I don't think that either of us envisioned what has come to pass in terms of the work that she's done, the writing and attendant graphic material that goes with it. And it's also very interesting because there are very few, to the best of my knowledge, there are very few graphic people who write as well as Allison does. And the combination of those things, not to mention the number of things that she's able to enclose in a small frame, okay, so that you have to spend a lot of time really looking at what's on the page rather than just casually glancing at the drawing that appears there. She has applied herself in a way that utilizes every possible skill and then the additional learned ones that a person with her innate talent could bring to bear in terms of her work. So many of the writers that I worked with have, whatever their issues in their own life and whatever the vagaries of the publishing world and whatever the state of LGBT reading and publishing and whatever the business of publishing books, the combination of those things has kept them from having a full creative life, for living off of the money that they are able to generate the work that produces, for defining what they want their life to look like in terms of location, in terms of the people that they need around them to help support their work, in terms of not being put in the position of having to compromise the things that they want to do in order to survive. That is both a stroke of genius in terms of the way Allison has been able to put that together, and incredibly good fortune. And I have to say that when I was a publisher, there was no author who gave me less trouble and made me more money than Allison. I used to tell her that she was the patron saint of poetry, because I was able to publish poetry that often did not pay for itself, because Dykes to Watch Out For more than paid for itself. Okay. I'm glad that the world has discovered her, as the article, the Judith Thurman article in The New Yorker says, as a great memoirist, which I know that she is. But I do know that she is still singularly unappreciated by the larger world for many years of chronicling the realities of the lesbian community in Dykes to Watch Out For. I have often told, when I've spoken to English classes in colleges, I've often said, if you want to have a feel for what the lesbian community went through and was and dealt with, don't go reading any of the major academic books, because you'll think it was really dull. Okay? Right? Read Allison's Dykes to Watch Out For, starting at the beginning and working all the way through, because as the community changed, grew, shifted, dealt with, etc., so did Allison in terms of who she introduced into her material. She continues to grow. I thought that Fun Home was an amazing book and loved. I know that it's used in university courses. My partner's included in a course that she teaches about story, from cave paintings to video games, and Fun Home is there. As part of that, it is used in an enormous number of contexts to show how people can take the material of their lives and turn them into, by this incredibly complicated, arduous, time-consuming, and neurotic process, okay, into absolute brilliance on the page. I'm very much looking forward to the new book, very much. I think I'll enjoy it much more than Judith Thurman's article in The New Yorker. And it is a pleasure for me, a deep personal pleasure since meeting and, I would like to say discovering, but it wasn't discovering, it was saying to Allison, reading her single frame cartoons in Woman News, the women's newspaper in New York City, many years ago. Do you know how good you are? Okay, Allison Bechdel.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Publishing Triangle. This is very moving and a very great honor, if perhaps a trifle premature. I'm so proud and so deeply grateful to have been introduced by Nancy Biriano tonight. I'm not sure what course my life would have taken if she hadn't discovered me virtually before I had discovered myself in my early 20s, and prodded me to produce enough cartoons to fill a slender volume. And if she hadn't taken me to book fairs and taught me how to behave in public, and had long conversations with me about the culture and business of publishing, especially about the seismic shifts that were just starting to be felt in the 90s. But even more important to my personal development were the other books that Nancy was publishing at Firebrand. Deeply radical and subversive titles like Dorothy Allison's Trash, Leslie Feinberg's Stone Butch Blues, poetry by Audre Lorde, and books by Joan Nessel and Minnie Bruce Pratt. I'm not going to list them all, but you should definitely go look at the list. It's worth going over. These are books that altered the cultural landscape and made all of our lives a little bit more possible. And more importantly, they were books that would never at that point in time have been published by a mainstream press. The vital wave of independent gay and feminist publishing in the 80s and 90s was, to a great extent, a victim of its own success in many ways, in much the same way that the broader culture, the broader queer subculture has been. The machinery of assimilation, the internet, the Amazon juggernaut have changed everything, and everything continues to change on a daily basis in an increasingly bewildering technological way. I feel so grateful to have so far weathered these various cultural and economic shifts. But I'm very aware of the fact that none of it would have been possible without Nancy's acumen and vision. It was her idea sometime in the mid-90s, at least a decade before it became a hot publishing trend, that I should write a graphic novel. And it took me a long time, and a lot of things happened in the meantime, including Nancy's decision to sell the company. But I did write a graphic novel, and Fun Home pretty much saved my publishing ass. I feel doubly honored to be sharing the stage tonight with Frances Golden, whose agency represented Fun Home. I feel very conscious of being an odd bridge between our publishing past and present, and very conscious that without a firm footing in that past, in that pioneering moment that Nancy and Firebrand were such a pivotal part of, I would not be a bridge at all. I would be floundering in the river, or would perhaps have had to go to law school. I just want to end by saying that I just happened to hear Dorothy Allison read last Friday night. She was touring with Sister Spit, amazingly. She was the last performer, and she read a story from Trash, which Nancy published, a story called River of Names, which Bastard out of Carolina grew out of. And Dorothy explained at the beginning that she didn't read this piece very often. And then she proceeded to read the piece, which is a brutal, excoriating, excruciating tale. And she was reading it to a room full of very young people, a lot of young queers, probably in their early 20s. And she scared the shit out of them. It was amazing. It was such an amazing thing to see this book coming to life again for a new, young audience. So that's all I want to say. Thank you to Nancy for everything. Thank you to the Publishing Triangle. Thanks all of you for all the work that you do. Thanks.
So I just have to say, my knees have been killing me all day, and I'm just awed by Alice jumping up on the stage. I'm just... I'm really happy that I'm here tonight, and I'm happy that you were able to be here tonight. I'd like to make some acknowledgments. The awards committee, which is Seth Bookey, Trent Duffy, Brent Gallenberger, David Groff, myself. Although I have to also, I think, add like an extra thank you to Trent, because really this would not happen. He oversees the whole thing, and he really does an amazing job, and this would not happen without the work that he puts into it. I'd like to thank Stephen Greco and Sarah Van Arsdale of the Farrow Grumley Literary Awards, Curtis Brown Limited, especially Mitchell Waters and Tim Knowlton, HarperCollins, especially Brian Murray, Michael Morrison, and Katie Frick, Farrar Straus Giroux, especially Jonathan Galassi and Vicki Jenna, Charlotte Sheedy and the Charlotte Sheedy Literary Agency, Matthew Enderlin for Design Services, Scott Manning, Michael Denany, Pam Tillis, Robert Polito, and Lori Lynn Turner at the New School, our judges, our presenters, our volunteers, and New York Community Trust, especially Bob Edgar and Martin Printing. I don't know about you, but whenever I hear the descriptions of the books, I always feel like, after hearing the descriptions, I always want to think to myself, I want to read that one, I want to read that one. So fortunately, Mobile Libris is selling the nominated books at the back, and we hope that you'll buy at least one to take home with you. And we also hope that you will join us at the reception that follows. Turn left as you exit the auditorium. Left again, you go through the courtyard, and you take the elevator to the 5th floor where wine and fabulous cheese await you. And finally, we'd like to ask all of the winners, including people who accepted on behalf of the winners if they weren't here, to come to the stage before going to the reception so that we can take some photographs. Thank you, and I hope you'll be back next year.